Hey everyone, I'm Alex, and with me are Maya and Ben. We're paranormal investigators, and for years, one location has been at the very top of our list: the abandoned Harrowick House. It doesn't look like much from the outside, just another forgotten home at the end of a long, lonely road. But the stories we've heard are unlike anything else. The legend isn't about ghosts you can see or things that attack you. It's about sound, specifically whispers, faint, disembodied voices that only show up after the clock strikes 12. Our research for this case led us deep into the town archives. The Harrowick House was last lived in by the Avery family. According to Historical Society records, they just up and left in the fall of 1972 and were never seen again. The official story is that they moved away, but the town's fear of this place comes from something that happened right before they vanished. On October 12th, 1972, the mother of the family, Sarah Avery, died inside that house. A newspaper clipping from back then reports she fell down the main staircase and her death was ruled an accident. But if the whispers are true, that's not the whole story. Tonight, our mission is to capture those whispers. We want to record them, analyze them, and finally figure out what this house is trying to tell us. I didn't want to admit it at the time, but the house was already watching us when we pulled up the gravel drive. The Harrowick House stood at the top of a shallow hill, its silhouette jagged and uneven against the bruised evening sky. The place looked like it had been forgotten by the world decades ago, and maybe it had. The boards over the windows were warped and splintered, like they'd been clawed at from the inside. The front door hung crooked on its hinges, as if someone had tried to leave in a hurry and the house refused to let them. The air felt wrong the moment I stepped out of the van. Thick, heavy, charged with something I couldn't name. I've been on dozens of investigations. I've walked through hospitals where the walls still smelled like antiseptic and grief. I've stood in basements where the air tasted like rust and old blood. I've slept in rooms where the temperature dropped 20 degrees the moment the lights went out. But this house felt alive, and it felt like it was holding its breath. We unloaded our equipment: audio recorders, thermal cameras, EMF meters, motion sensors. The usual arsenal. The others chatted, joked, tried to lighten the mood, but I stayed quiet. I couldn't shake the sensation that the house was listening, not to all of us, just to me. The porch groaned under my weight as I stepped onto it. The boards flexed almost subtly, like something beneath them shifted in response. I paused, listening. The windmill creaked behind us, turning lazily. A crow cawed from somewhere in the trees. But beneath all that, I heard something else. A faint, rhythmic sound. Soft, measured, almost like breathing. I told myself it was the wind slipping through the cracks in the siding. I told myself a lot of things that night. The truth didn't hit me until later. The house wasn't breathing. It was waiting. Inside, the air was colder, not the kind of cold that comes from a lack of insulation. This was deeper, heavier, like the cold you feel in a hospital morgue, the kind that sinks into your bones. My flashlight beam cut through the dust, illuminating the faded wallpaper, a pattern of roses that had long since browned and curled at the edges. The floorboards creaked under every step, each groan echoing through the empty rooms like a warning. We set up base in the main hallway. It was the only place where the floor felt stable enough to hold our equipment. A grandfather clock stood against the far wall, its glass shattered, its hands frozen at exactly 12 o'clock. I remember staring at it longer than I should have. Something about it bothered me. something I couldn't place. Midnight, I whispered to myself. The others didn't hear me, but the house did. I swear the air shifted, a subtle tightening, like the house tensed at the word. We worked until the last of the daylight faded from the windows. By the time we finished setting up the audio recorders, the sky outside had turned the color of old bruises. The storm clouds were gathering faster now, rolling in like a tide. At 11:50 p.m., we gathered in the hallway, headsets on, recorders running. At 11:55, the temperature dropped another 10 degrees. At 11:58, the house fell silent. Completely silent. Not even the wind dared to breathe. And at 12:01 a.m., the whisper came. It slid through my headset like a breath against my ear. Soft, dragging, impossibly close. A single word. Stay. I froze. Not because of the word, but because the voice sounded like mine. I replayed the audio. Same tone, same cadence, same quiet rasp I get when I'm tired. But I hadn't spoken, and the recorder showed two voices layered together, mine, and something deeper, something older, something that had been waiting for us to arrive, something that didn't want us to leave. Ben was the first to break the silence after the whisper. "Tell me you heard that," he said, pulling off his headset like it had burned him. Ben always tried to sound tough, but I could hear the tremor in his voice. He was the kind of guy who hid fear behind sarcasm, the kind who'd crack a joke in a morgue just to keep himself from shaking. But not this time. His face had gone pale, and his eyes kept darting toward the darkened hallway behind us. Maya, on the other hand, leaned in closer to her recorder like she was listening to a sermon. She was the skeptic of the group, not the kind who dismissed everything, but the kind who needed proof carved in stone before she'd believe it. Her dark hair fell over her face as she replayed the audio, her brow furrowing deeper with each pass. "That's layered," she murmured. "Two voices. One is definitely Alex's." She glanced at me. "But the other one isn't human," Ben finished. I didn't respond. I couldn't. Because the truth was worse than either of them realized. The whisper hadn't just sounded like me. It had sounded like me thinking, like the voice I hear in my own head when I'm alone. But I didn't tell them that. Not yet. We moved into the living room to regroup. The floorboards groaned under our weight, each step echoing through the empty house like a warning. The air felt colder here, heavier, as if the walls were pressing inward. Maya set her laptop on a dusty coffee table and pulled up the house's historical records. She'd downloaded everything she could find before we arrived. Newspaper clippings, police reports, missing persons files. The Harrowick family, 4 members, all vanished in 1979. No bodies, no signs of forced entry. Just a single note left on the kitchen table. Maya slid the scanned image toward me. The handwriting was jagged, frantic. "The house knows. The house remembers. The house does not forgive." Ben let out a low whistle. "Well, that's comforting." But something about the note bothered me. Not the words, the spacing, the way the letters leaned, the uneven pressure of the pen. It looked like it had been written by someone whose hand wasn't entirely their own. Maya kept scrolling. "There's more. Neighbors reported hearing screams the night the family disappeared. But when police arrived, the house was silent. Completely silent. Like it swallowed the sound." Ben snorted. "Houses don't swallow sound." I looked at him, at the darkened hallway behind him, at the grandfather clock frozen at midnight. "Some do," I said quietly. He didn't laugh. The storm outside grew louder, wind rattling the boarded windows. The house seemed to react to it. The walls creaked, the floor shifted, the air tightened. It felt like the house was listening to us talk about it, like it didn't appreciate being remembered. Maya leaned back, rubbing her temples. Okay, so the family disappears. The house gets a reputation. Locals avoid it. But there's no record of anyone else staying here overnight since then. Ben raised an eyebrow. So we're the first idiots in 40 years to try. Pretty much. I walked toward the fireplace, drawn by something I couldn't explain. The ash inside was thick, undisturbed. But the mantel above it was carved with deep gouges, not scratches, not accidental damage. Gouges. Like someone had dug their nails into the wood and pulled downward with all their strength. I reached out and touched one of the grooves. It was warm. I jerked my hand back. "Alex," Maya asked, "what is it?" I didn't answer, because I didn't know how to explain it. The house wasn't just remembering, it was reacting. Ben paced near the window, muttering to himself. "We should check the upstairs rooms, maybe set up more recorders. If something's trying to talk, we should..." He stopped. We all heard it, a soft, deliberate creak from the second floor. Then another. Footsteps, slow, measured, moving across the ceiling above us. Ben swallowed hard. "Tell me that's one of the motion sensors." "It's not," Maya whispered. The footsteps stopped directly above me. I felt the weight of them, like something was standing right there, pressing down through the floorboards. Then the whisper came again. Not through the headset this time, not through the recorder, but from the ceiling itself. A breathy, dragging murmur. "Alex." My name. Spoken like a secret. Spoken like a promise. Ben backed away. Nope, I'm not doing this. That thing knows your name." Maya stared at me, her face pale. "Alex, why would it know you?" I didn't have an answer, but deep down, in the part of me I tried to ignore, I already knew the truth. The house didn't learn my name tonight. It remembered it. Ben didn't want to go upstairs. I could see it in the way he kept glancing at the staircase, like it was a throat the house wanted us to crawl down into. But Maya insisted we needed more audio coverage on the second floor. "We came here to document everything," she said, her voice steady, but her hands trembling. "If something's moving around up there, we need to know why." Ben muttered something under his breath, but he grabbed a recorder anyway. I led the way. The staircase groaned under each step, the wood bending like it hadn't held weight in decades. Halfway up, the air changed. Colder, denser, almost metallic. I could taste it on my tongue. Maya noticed it too. "Do you smell that? Like iron?" Ben sniffed. "Smells like a damn toolbox." But it wasn't metal. It was blood. Old blood. The kind that sinks into wood and never fully leaves. At the top of the stairs, the hallway stretched out in both directions, lined with doors that hung slightly open, as if someone had left them in a hurry. The wallpaper here was worse, peeling in long strips, exposing the rotting wood beneath. The house felt tighter up here, more aware, like it was listening to our footsteps. We started with the room on the left. The door creaked open with a long, low groan. My flashlight beam swept across the room, a child's bedroom, or what was left of one. A small bed frame sat crooked against the wall, its mattress long gone. A wooden rocking horse lay on its side, one of its painted eyes chipped away. But what caught my attention was the wall. Dozens of small handprints covered it. Tiny, smudged, dark. Maya stepped closer, her breath catching. "Is that paint?" Ben shook his head. "No kid paints with that color." I didn't say anything. I didn't need to. The prints were brownish red, old, dried, but unmistakably blood. And they weren't random. They formed a pattern, a swirling, spiraling shape that pulled the eye inward, a shape I'd seen before. In dreams I never talked about, in the corner of my vision when I was a child, in the dark when I thought I was alone. I stepped back, heart pounding. The house remembered me, and it wanted me to remember it. We moved on quickly, too quickly. Ben kept glancing over his shoulder, like he expected the handprints to start moving. The next room was colder, much colder. My breath fogged in front of me as I pushed the door open. The room was empty except for a dresser with a cracked mirror. The glass was so dirty it barely reflected anything. But when I stepped closer, I saw something in the reflection. Not behind me, not in the room, in the mirror itself. A dark shape, tall, still. Standing where my reflection should have been, I blinked, and it vanished. "Alex?" Maya asked. "You okay?" I nodded, though my skin crawled. Yeah, just dust in my eyes. But I knew what I saw, and the house knew I saw it. Ben placed a recorder on the dresser. "Let's just get the last room and get the hell back downstairs." He didn't wait for us. He walked into the hallway, and that's when we heard it. A soft, wet sound, like something dripping. Ben froze. "What the?" The sound came from the final room at the end of the hall. Slow, steady, drip, drip, drip. Maya's voice was barely a whisper. "Is there a leak?" No. There hadn't been rain yet. And even if there had, this wasn't water. I walked toward the room, each step heavier than the last. The door was slightly ajar, a thin line of darkness visible through the crack. The dripping grew louder. I pushed the door open. The room was empty, completely empty. No furniture, no debris, nothing, except for the ceiling. A dark stain spread across it. Thick, uneven, like something had soaked through from above, and from the center of the stain. A single drop of blood fell. It hit the floor with a soft pat. Then another and another. Ben backed away. Nope, I'm done. I'm not staying in a house that bleeds." Maya swallowed hard. "There's no attic above this room, just the roof." I stared at the stain, my pulse hammering. The house wasn't bleeding, it was remembering. And whatever happened here, it wasn't finished. As we turned to leave, the whisper came again. Not from the ceiling, not from the hallway, from right behind me. "Alex, you came back." I spun around. No one was there. But the house felt closer now, hungrier, like it had been waiting decades for this moment. And for the first time, I felt something I hadn't felt since I was a child. Recognition. Ben didn't speak for a full minute after the whisper said my name. He just stared at me, eyes wide, chest rising and falling too fast. Maya looked between us like she was trying to solve a puzzle she didn't want the answer to. I swallowed hard. "Let's go downstairs, now." We moved as a group, not because we planned to, but because none of us wanted to be the one walking alone. The hallway felt narrower than before, like the walls had shifted inward while we were in the rooms. The air pressed against my skin, thick and cold, as if the house was trying to seep into me. Halfway down the stairs, the whisper came again. Not from behind us, not from above, from inside the walls, a soft, dragging murmur. "Alex, don't leave." Ben nearly tripped down the last few steps. Nope, I'm done. I'm not staying in a house that knows your damn name. Maya grabbed his arm. Ben, calm down. Calm down? Calm down? The house is talking to him. I didn't argue, because he was right. The house wasn't just whispering. It was addressing me directly. And the worst part? It didn't sound angry. It sounded lonely. We regrouped in the main hallway, the grandfather clock looming over us like a silent witness. Its hands were still frozen at midnight, but now the glass looked fogged from the inside, as if something had breathed against it. Maya set her laptop on the floor and pulled up the audio files. We need to analyze the whisper. Maybe it's mimicking your voice, Alex. Maybe it's... It's not mimicking, Ben snapped. It's talking to him. Maya shot him a look. We don't know that. Yes, we do. Ben pointed at me. It said his name, twice. I didn't respond, because I was listening. The house had gone quiet again. Too quiet. The kind of quiet that feels intentional. I knelt beside Maya and watched the waveform on her screen. The whisper was faint, but clear, layered, distorted, like two voices speaking in unison. One was definitely mine. The other sounded like something trying to remember how to be human. Maya zoomed in on the audio. There's something else, a background frequency, almost like... She stopped. Her eyes widened. Almost like another voice underneath both of yours. Ben threw his hands up. Great. So now there's 3 of you. But Maya wasn't joking. She isolated the frequency and played it. A low, guttural sound filled the hallway. Not a whisper, not a word. A growl, deep, hungry, alive. Ben backed away. Turn it off. Turn it off. Maya killed the audio. Silence returned, but it wasn't empty. It felt like the house was listening to us react. Like it was learning. I stood slowly, my legs trembling. We need to check the basement. Ben stared at me like I'd lost my mind. Why? Why the hell would we go deeper into this place? Because whatever's happening, it's not random. I swallowed. It knows me. Maya's voice softened. Alex, what do you mean? I hesitated. I hadn't told them everything. Not about the dreams. Not about the whisper I heard when I was a kid. Not about the symbol on the wall upstairs. The spiral of handprints that matched the one I used to draw without knowing why. I've heard that voice before, I said quietly. Ben blinked. What? When I was 8, in my old house, I woke up one night and heard someone whisper my name from inside the walls. I exhaled shakily. My parents said it was a dream, but I knew it wasn't. Maya stared at me, her face pale. Alex, are you saying this house? I don't know, I said, but it remembers me. Ben shook his head violently. No way. You've never been here before. Not physically, I whispered. The house creaked, a long, low groan that traveled through the floorboards like a shiver. Maya grabbed her flashlight. If the house is connected to you somehow, the basement might have answers. Ben looked like he wanted to run out the front door and never look back. But he didn't, because the house wouldn't let him. The front door, the one we'd left cracked open, was now shut. Firmly, silently. Ben tried the handle. It didn't budge. He pulled harder. Nothing. He slammed his shoulder into it. The door didn't move an inch. Maya whispered, "It locked us in." Ben turned to me, panic rising in his eyes. "Alex, do something." But I couldn't. because the whisper came again. Not from the walls, not from the ceiling, from directly behind me. "You're home." And for the first time, I felt like it might be right. Ben didn't want to go first. I didn't blame him. The basement door stood at the end of the hallway like a mouth, tall, narrow, and too dark around the edges, as if the shadows were thicker there. The wood was swollen from moisture, warped in a way that made it look like it had been pushed outward from the inside. Maya held her flashlight tight enough that her knuckles turned white. "We need to document whatever's down there. If the house is connected to you, Alex, the basement might explain why." Ben scoffed, but it was hollow. "Or it might kill us." He wasn't wrong. The air around the basement door felt colder than the rest of the house. Not the natural cold of a draft. This was deeper, heavier, like the cold you feel when someone stands too close behind you. I reached for the doorknob. It was warm, not room temperature warm, body warm, like someone had just been holding it. I pulled my hand back instinctively. Maya noticed. "What is it?" "It's hot," I whispered. Ben swore under his breath. "Nope, absolutely not. Doors don't get hot unless something's... Huh." He stopped, because the doorknob turned on its own. Slowly, deliberately, like a hand on the other side was twisting it. The latch clicked. The door creaked open. A wave of cold air rolled out, thick and damp, carrying the smell of earth and something else. Something metallic and old. Blood. Again, Maya lifted her flashlight. "Alex, you go first." I nodded, because deep down, I already knew the house wanted me to. The staircase groaned under my weight as I stepped onto it. The wood felt soft, almost spongy, like it had absorbed years of moisture, or something worse. My flashlight beam cut through the darkness, illuminating dust swirling in the air like ash. Ben followed reluctantly, muttering to himself. "This is how horror movies start. This is exactly how they start." Maya came last, her footsteps careful, controlled. Halfway down, the air changed again. It grew warmer, humid, alive. I could hear something faint, a low rhythmic sound, not machinery, not pipes, breathing, slow, deep, steady. The basement was breathing. Ben froze. "Tell me that's not what I think it is." Maya swallowed hard. "Keep going." I didn't want to, but the house did, and the house always got what it wanted. The stairs ended on a concrete floor stained with dark patches that had seeped into the stone. My flashlight beam swept across the room. Old shelves, rusted tools, broken jars, a toppled workbench. But the center of the basement was clear. Too clear. A perfect circle of untouched concrete, as if nothing had ever dared to settle there. Not dust, not debris, not time. And in the middle of that circle, a symbol, carved deep into the floor. A spiral. The same spiral from the upstairs wall, the same spiral from my childhood drawings, the same spiral that haunted my dreams. Ben stepped back. "Nope, nope, I'm done. That's a cult symbol, or a demon symbol, or a..." "It's older," I whispered. Maya looked at me sharply. "How do you know that?" I didn't answer, because I didn't know how to explain it. I just knew. The spiral wasn't carved by human hands. It wasn't a symbol someone created. It was a memory. The house's memory. And mine. The breathing sound deepened, vibrating through the floor. The walls seemed to pulse with it, expanding and contracting like lungs. Ben pressed himself against the staircase railing. "We need to leave. Now!" I don't care if the door's locked. We'll break a window, we'll... The whisper cut him off. Not from behind us, not from the walls, from the spiral. A soft, dragging murmur rising from the floor itself. Alex. My name. Again. But this time, it wasn't calling me. It was welcoming me. Maya grabbed my arm. Alex, don't step closer. But I already had. Something pulled at me. Not physically, but mentally, emotionally. Like a memory trying to surface. My vision blurred at the edges. The basement seemed to tilt, the shadows stretching toward me like reaching hands. I heard another whisper. Not the house, not the deeper voice. A third one. A child's voice. You left us. My breath caught. Ben's flashlight flickered violently. What the hell was that? Who said that? Maya's voice trembled. Alex, did you hear that? I nodded slowly, because I recognized the voice. It was the same voice I heard when I was 8 years old. The same voice that whispered my name from inside the walls of my childhood home. The same voice that told me not to tell my parents. The same voice that said it would find me again. And now it had. The spiral pulsed once, a deep resonant thud that shook dust from the ceiling. Then the breathing stopped. The basement fell silent. Too silent. And in that silence, the house spoke one more time. Not a whisper, not a breath. A word, clear, sharp, final. Remember. And I did. All at once. Everything I had forgotten, everything I had buried, everything the house had been waiting decades to reclaim. Do you want to know what happens next? If so, make sure to like, comment, and subscribe, because it really helps out the channel. If you want the next part of the story, comment next part in the comments. We have new stories releasing every day, so until then, haunt you later.